Mr. President, I rise today to voice my strong support for the nomination of Ajit Pai to a second 5-year term as a commissioner at the Federal Communications Commission. Mr. Pai has served as a commissioner at the FCC since 2012 when he was first confirmed by voice vote in the Senate. Mr. Pai was designated by President Trump to be the 34th chairman of the FCC in January of this year and renominated to a second term at the FCC in March. In July, the Senate Commerce Committee, which I'm privileged to chair, held a hearing on the nomination of Mr. Pai, and the committee reported out his nomination favorably on August the 2nd. Prior to becoming a commissioner, Chairman Pai worked on telecommunications policy in both the public and private sectors, notably serving here in the Senate as a staffer on the Judiciary Committee as well as in the General Counsel's office at the FCC. It is my belief that Mr. Pai's stellar career in communications policy, his integrity, and his tireless work ethic all serve him well as he continues to serve the FCC and guide the agency back to being a more collaborative and productive institution. In just 9 months since becoming chairman, Mr. Pai has made much-needed reforms to improve transparency at the FCC and to improve the agency's processes. I'm particularly heartened by Chairman Pai's efforts to treat his fellow commissioners fairly by instituting the process of sharing documents with other commissioners before discussing them publicly. Additionally, under Chairman Pai's leadership, the public is now able to view the text of all agenda items in advance of commission meetings. Also, to better reflect the realities of today's competitive landscape, Chairman Pai has announced the creation of an Office of Economics and Data to provide cost-benefit analyses to better inform the FCC's work. These measures are a significant step forward from the last chairman's leadership style, which I frequently criticized as being hyper-partisan and warned would lead to counterproductive outcomes over the long term. That is why, a little over a year ago, I felt compelled to stand in this same spot and to strongly criticize the previous chairman of the FCC for leading the commission with unprecedented partisan zeal. At that time, I noted that the voting record for open meetings at the commission showed a long history of consensus building, with the previous 5 permanent FCC chairmen combining for only 14 party line votes at open meetings during their tenure. However, this all changed under Chairman Wheeler as he pursued a highly partisan agenda driven by ideological beliefs more than by a sober reading of the law. Chairman Wheeler forced 3-2 votes on a party line basis, a total of 31 times. Put another way, in 3 years under Chairman Wheeler, the FCC saw over twice as many partisan votes than in the previous 20 years combined. While partisan differences are sometimes inevitable, what were once very rare events have become standard operating procedure at the Commission. This extreme partisanship was used to do the following things: to complete a complete upending of how the Internet is regulated, creating years of uncertainty for everyone; stripping important consumer protection responsibilities from the Federal Trade Commission; a failed attempt to override states' rights on municipal broadband in a power grab that was overturned by the courts; increasing the size of the Universal Service Fund by billions of dollars while simultaneously undermining bipartisan efforts to improve the program's accountability; the unnecessary and possibly unlawful disclosure of trade secrets; and a plan to have the FCC and its Media Bureau design and dictate the future of television apps. I was not alone in noticing Chairman Wheeler's overreach. On several occasions, other federal agencies refused to support his actions. The Copyright Office strongly criticized the proposal for set-top boxes. The staff at the Federal Trade Commission called the FCC's privacy rules not optimal, which is bureaucrat speak for really bad. And the Obama administration's Department of Justice refused to defend the FCC's unlawful action on municipal broadband. With respect to Internet regulations, I'm pleased that Chairman Pai has sought to hit the reset button on the 2015 Title II order, because, as I have previously said, the FCC should do what is necessary to rebalance the agency's regulatory posture under current law. I continue to believe, however, that the best way to provide long-term protections for the Internet is for Congress to pass bipartisan legislation. 2.5 years ago, I put forward legislative principles in a draft bill to begin the conversation, and I continue to stand ready and willing today to work toward finding a lasting legislative solution that will resolve the dispute over net neutrality once and for all. Thankfully, the net neutrality debate has not distracted the FCC from important work in other areas. For instance, the FCC's proposed rulemaking on robocalls is a positive step in the right direction. The government must do everything we can to protect consumers from those who are truly bad actors, but we also need to be sure the government's rules are not unfairly punishing legitimate callers who are not acting maliciously. The FCC's notice of inquiry will give that conversation a much-needed jump start. Furthermore, Chairman Pai's focus on the expansion of rural broadband and acceleration of next-generation infrastructure deployment will help close the digital divide, a goal that we all share. He's also worked tirelessly to help ensure communication services are restored to the communities affected by Hurricanes Harvey, Irma, and Maria. Given the FCC's importance to the future of our economy and our society, it is important for the Commission to seek opportunities for common ground. In the past, people used to say that communications policy was not particularly partisan and that both sides of the aisle could often find common ground to work together. Well, times have changed, Mr. President, and the debate on this nomination is another example of that. I know that agreement's not always possible. Nevertheless, as a corrective to the Commission's recent history, I urge Chairman Pai at his confirmation hearing to treat all commissioners fairly, to respect the law, to be willing to ask Congress for guidance, and to seek consensus whenever and wherever possible. I believe doing so will improve the agency's credibility and will result in actions that are more likely to endure, and I believe that Chairman Pai will do these things. As I noted at the outset, Chairman Pai has already made much-needed reforms to improve the processes at the FCC and to empower his fellow commissioners. He has already shown a commitment to ensuring transparency and openness at the Commission that gives me great confidence in the direction that he will lead the agency. Chairman Pai's new approach, I believe, will lead to more long-lasting and positive results at the FCC. And that is why I believe the elevation of Ajit Pai to be the chairman of the Commission is a much-needed breath of fresh air, and why I believe he should be confirmed promptly without further delay. So, Mr. President, I urge my colleagues to support this nomination. I yield the floor.